But I didn't see any alternative through generations on both sides. But yeah, I know other men feel the same way. They feel in a similar position to me. They feel this sense of shame, I suppose, of being nothing. Probably hits us older blokes worse, I suppose, because we grew up in an era, a male chauvinistic era where we were the men and we were the breadwinners, and that's what made you a man, that you actually contributed the bulk of the money. I don't think myself that I failed. I did the best I could. It's just that you're useless now. That's the way you feel, that you're useless, totally useless. I mean, the cat catches rats and mice. What do?
How's that been going from working all your life then to being unemployed?
Well, it's hard, as I've never been unemployed, always worked all that period of time, and to all of a sudden not be working, it's now got stress on the wife because I'm under her feet all the time. She feels as the breadwinner I should be out, getting work.
Well, life after it is, I was sick for a long time after I resigned. I'd only come out of hospital about 3 or 4 days prior to my resignation, and I was sick for a very long time. Like, I withdrew into myself and questioned all those ideals and beliefs that I held. I used to hold so close to me. Life after, it's been very difficult. Not many people are interested in employing a person with my outlook. So I've had to go into studying and all that sort of stuff. And I think out of the end of the whole disaster and the whole thing is that I've ended up a much nicer human being, but it's been at some cost.
I'm not going down the path of Prozac and Valium either. I know some people now, both at work and who have left, are in that trap of prescribed medication for their depression, and I just see that as a real trap. My wife said to me, my partner of 21 years said to me that she knew if I chucked the job in and came home, I'd go mad. If I stayed on the job, I'd die, and she'd rather have me home mad than dead at work.
There was an immediate recruitment of new workers employed as casuals.
Now the company can just put who they want, where they want, as many times as they want. Right?
As many shifts as they want to.
Yep. Yes. Yep. So you could have. Well, we had a case in point. I mean, you'd have some blokes here could work 5-6 days a week, and we had a woman up at Maritime. She got 2 moorings for the week, which is 4 hours pay. Where there should have been some sort of equalisation, each one should have got 3 days.
The biggest change was the amount of people that left the industry. They all had their good reasons, whatever, for going. We've had an influx of new members, and I'd call them members because currently everybody here, to my recollection, has signed up. They are a member of the union. But it's a bit like starting your first day of kindergarten. There's a lot of education goes with that. It's one thing to get the person to join the union, it's another thing to win their hearts and get them to be active within the union.
Having to get 4 hours pay, for a week. You've got to live on that.
You're employed as a casual. If they don't want you, don't like the look of you or whatever else, you won't get picked up, and if there's no shipping around anyway, you're starved.
You have now so few experienced workers on the wharves, there's just not enough to watch over all the new, fresh, young people coming in. And these fresh young people are coming in as casuals and are being driven into situations that are horrendously dangerous.
Before we had a first aider picked up the shift, he's a designated person who was suitably attired and that people would easily recognise him, responsible for the first aid equipment. Now, nothing.
They're racing into danger, oblivious to what they're doing, and there's not enough experienced heads there to say, hang on, 10 years ago this happened, or 5 years ago this happened, so that's why we don't do it that way anymore.
Just recently, it was Labor Day. There was an ad where people could be upgraded to a GWE, which is a permanent part-time type position. Right beside that was who was prepared to work on Labor Day. So that competition is there. There's always a bit of a wedge being driven between people.
Because if they don't do it, they're not going to get picked up.
If workers don't feel that they're an integral part of the organisation, or if there's a breakdown between the rank and file and the union's leadership, where there's an antagonism or there is a feeling that they will not be looked after, well, it creates a climate for an employer to wreak havoc with that workforce. And that's not just on the waterfront, that's everywhere.
We just haven't got the, what you say, the pull anymore to request like financial records and stuff like that.
They had security guards on the gates. You had to get right of entry permits through the Arbitration Commission to even go onto the premises.
I had a story on the email today about the murder of union officials in Colombia. They are frequently murdered in the Philippines. We're not murdered in Australia anymore, but there certainly are people who pay a big penalty, even for workplace activism.
Workers were extremely victimised in the last few years.
Oh, they have been. So anyone who sort of said to be militant or stood up to the boss, especially the casuals, even though it was pretty hard to prove at the time, they weren't given an equal amount of work and stuff like that.
I hated 3 weeks of irregular, which could be midnights. We just can't wait for the new EBAs to come in. So hopefully the management will see that, this isn't a very good roster, and they should change it.
Those decisions really were in the hands of a small number of people, and no doubt that would cause heartburn to those in the long run who lost their jobs as a result of the dispute. But I think that is the reality of such a complex dispute, where the employer is in concert with the government with a very clear and obvious, well-resourced capacity to smash the union.
I mean, 700 permanent jobs wins, and yet the national officials can still boast, that we protected jobs. They didn't protect jobs at all. You carry that through into Conos, probably 1,500 jobs have gone, permanent jobs.
Certainly if the union strategy had been different and more adventurous, and called for a general strike and not had an intelligent and well-organised legal strategy, I think the workers would have been smashed, and I think the union would have been seriously affected. But what is more, and I think more important, is in the longer run, the possibility of collective organisation for workers more broadly would have really been set back a long way.
The unionised workforce in Australia is down to 1 in 4 now. The point is, how are they going to attack the problem? And unless it goes back to the shop floor, unless it goes back to the people on the job being empowered, that they can actually have some real influences on the changes of their lives, well, the downward trend of trade unionism in this country will continue. It's a very hierarchical, very bureaucratic trade union movement.
Waterside workers were very politically educated people, very wide-read, very internationalist, always willing to step in and risk their own jobs to help other workers. What creates militant unions and militant workers isn't that they're born with a militant spoon in their mouth. It's the fact that the conditions are so harsh and dangerous, like mining, like the wharves, like seafarers. The conditions are so harsh that for their very lives they have to fight to improve safety conditions, and out of that flows improved wages and improved living conditions.
In the Australian sort of spectrum, they were a union which was close to its members. Now, I think they, along with a lot of Australian unions, the Accord years meant that unions became more centralised, industrial strategy was more determined at the ACTU level.
What we were told with the Accords by our leadership nationally was that yes, we as waterside workers could go for a pay rise and could probably get it, but in the interests of those who were paid a lot less than us, we had to hold back to allow the money that we would have got to go to these people who weren't being paid as much as us, but it never happened. And also the theme of the waterside workers, particularly before the MUA amalgamation happened between the waterside workers and the seamen, the theme of the national leadership was this: we have to have profitable companies, and profitable companies will provide jobs. Well, you have profitable companies only by exploiting workers.
That's a double S at end one. Yeah, double S, all 40s.
As a result, the kind of sinews of unionism, membership activism, connection to issues that were really at the heart of people's concerns weakened. And I think that did mean that strategically that union and the ACTU more broadly, many unions, came into such a sort of hearts and minds struggle with a relatively weak connection to a lot of the members.
You centralise your union structure in, say, Sydney, and you make that the national office will deal with all the problems of the union in the main. What happens is that the branch structure will be disempowered in the branch, in the elected leaders of the branch, but much more importantly than that, it disempowers the rank and file. And it also creates a condition where a branch can blame all the problems it's having on the national body, and the national body can blame all of its problems that it has upon the branches not doing the work.
You can name and put your finger on a bunch of officials who have taken a road which has cost their families money, it's affected their health, you know, they've been committed to a task which has been difficult. At the same time, we've had a bunch of seat warmers.
There's many very principled people, but some you feel that they're on an expressway to the upper middle class, and you have to worry about when people start thinking more of the car they're driving or the private schools they're sending their kids to, and how big their next home's going to be, rather than what sort of life their membership is living.
To me, what the union is the rank and file. It's not the full-time employees who are the officials, and that's what they are, they're employees of the union. It's not the union buildings or the cars or the mobile phones, it's the rank and file. And what makes a union strong is that the whole-scale participation of the rank and file in determining policy and where the union's going through democratic decision-making process in meetings. It's an awkward and cumbersome way of doing it, but the more informed and the more involved the rank and file is, the stronger the union is. What's happened in the MUA, and I presume in other unions as well, is that the union has been hijacked by a small middle class, in a way, minority, who consider themselves to be the union and the rank and file to be like clients or customers of them.
If you start thinking that you're the top dog, or you're this and you're that, you're a genius, it creates this idea that you're the person who is the strength of the organisation, when the strength of any union or any organisation like a union is within its rank and file.
Any union can be broken. It all depends on how strong the union is. And I feel that the Waterfront Union and the Miners Union and all the other unions around are as strong as the people that make them strong.
Democracy within an organisation should never be a facade. It should be something that's an utterly integral part of it, and that's one of the reasons why I talk so passionately about rotational leadership in unions where it's possible, and in branches in particular of unions.
That is a really interesting question about what are the possible mechanisms for democratic organisations to keep democratic. How do we avoid leaders and representatives being sucked into mindsets which are other than representing the interests of those they are elected to represent. And Jack Mundey, in his leadership of the Builders Labourers Federation, was committed to, for example, to the rotation of leadership. And you know, that story is kind of salutary when he left the leadership of the BLF and took his experience with him. The BLF was unable to withstand a very significant assault from right-wing unionism, and we lost a really important union. So I think there are some very tough questions around the issue of cycling leadership. I mean, I'm in favour of it. I think it makes a heap of sense. But it is actually quite expensive in terms of losing leadership and experience.
See, the old fellas, they used to come back as casual, and they kept it going. The union and
the spirit of the place.
Spirit,
right?
yeah. The old neighbour, and had old nicknames and stuff like that. You know, and it sort of went on that you could talk to an old fellow and get a bit of background on certain issues like the maritime orders and that. But not everyone was au fait with them, and what would happen is you could always call on someone always had the Bible in their, you know, the maritime 32 or something, always had it in their locker, or the award and stuff like that. But nowadays people just live by the sword. If the boss says jump, they say, how high do you want me to jump?
I think the opportunity of coming out of that dispute, given the political economy location of it and the determination of a strong Conservative government and very militant bosses, I think it was a campaign that had to be fought on several fronts and was reasonably unlikely to come up with a big win for the workers. And in the long term winner of the dispute, in straightforward monetary and material terms, is Chris Corrigan. His shares are now very much higher than they were at the time of the dispute.
12 workers from Patrick's were able to transfer to Sealand, which was later sold to CSX World Terminals.
Well, during the dispute, I had to sell the house, and I needed to keep working. I had a daughter to support, so life at Patrick's after the dispute wasn't very pleasurable. Fortunately enough, got a job at Sealand. Well, Sealand was good. I really enjoyed working there.
Yeah.
It was like starting a new life.
Then you were sick pretty recently, eh? What happened there with the workers?
They all pitched in every week. They dug into their pockets and helped us keep our home and kept the family fed. It was brilliant. They did it for 3 months.
That's amazing. And you hadn't been working there that long either, really, had you?
No, a bit over a year and year and a bit. And they all dug in their pockets every week, and it just saved our necks.
In 2001, employees at CSX World Terminals Brisbane achieved the highest productivity in stevedoring in Australia. Barely a week after the workers were congratulated for the great job they were doing, the entire CSX World Terminals workforce is called into an urgent meeting with National Boss Grant Gilfillan and MUA officials.
CSX World Terminal is a journey with a world-class operation. If you are ready for a challenging and rewarding career, consider CSX World Terminal as well. There's a few of us here that have, and look, it's just better to have them.
Haven't we met before somewhere? I mean, during the dispute in '98 at Patrick's and...
Yeah, through the Patrick's dispute 3 years ago. We were locked out.
Yeah.
That's when we met.
And now you took a job at Sealand, and,
yes.
and why did you do that?
Because I thought I wasn't going to sell my job, take redundancy, and I came here for a permanent job.
They're a bit late, so if you can just get these blokes just so you can know, if you want to ask any questions. I think the human resources and people here from this other end. Pete Luption, is he there, Pete? Brad Johnston, who's there, Brad? Paul Hodgkin? Dallas Whaleman? Yeah. Paul Carnegie? Dave Coates? Scotty Butterworth?
Grant Gilfillan told the workers that CSX World Terminals Brisbane had been bought out by Patrick's boss Chris Corrigan. Corrigan wanted the machinery, the berth and other assets, but the 80 workers would no longer be required.
Doing it ourselves? I know it's a fucking, maybe it's pie in the sky, but shit. Fuck, we're all in the same boat, we're all out of a job.
They didn't take the workers on at all. I think it's a bit selfish and unfair.
It should be every union, Australia-wide, completely go out on strike and just make one big scenario of the whole situation and get the people, not just as individuals, it's got to be everybody. It can't be a little one-off situation, just one union. That's got nothing to do with it. You got to stop the country. You got to stop the country for a month. Collectively. Yeah, collectively, it's got to be done.
So here we are, we're working our